Good day, everyone. Welcome to our first 2022 CPUG sponsored, Western Canada sponsored webinar. Thank you for joining us today. I hope your Christmas break was restful. Although it seems to me like it was quite a while ago. So let me take you through what our plan is today. We've got a lot of people contributing today, and the agenda is as follows. So we've had one of our CPUG members, Veronica Clausen, volunteer to share some considerations around data automation or GIS automation or in projects that she's worked on in the past. And in fact, all of the presentations today have a bit of a data theme. Kyler Coots who will take us, give us an update on the plan to refresh and update the Geological Atlas of the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin. Then we have Farah and Alia from Esri Canada, who will share with us some content in the Living Atlas, and specifically the Community Map of Canada. And then two members of the CPUG steering committee will be presenting an update, a couple of slides on an update on where we are and the things that we've been doing for the membership, as well as to gain a little bit of information from you and gather some data from you about what your interests and thoughts are about participating in future webinars with us in 2022. And we'll close up session recap at the end of the hour and try to get you away on time at the top of the hour. We are recording this webinar, so you'll be able to share it with others and review it in the future. We will also send a survey to you asking for your feedback so that we can continue to improve and make these more effective in the future. There will be an opportunity for Q&A. We've sprinkled that at the end of each of the sessions. So if you get your questions into the Q&A, send it to all panelists. Then at the end of each presentation, we'll have a couple of minutes to address a few questions, and then we'll move on to the next session. So thanks again for participating today. Our first presentation will be Veronica Clausen. She's done a lot of work in looking at GIS data and excuse me, and how to automate that to make things consistent, especially when looking at projects where you're looking at options or different scenarios. So let me turn it over to Veronica for her presentation today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you, Tim, for introducing me. I've been serving engineers and designers, planners for a number of years now, and I'm hoping that maybe some of my skills could be transferable into the energy sector. So I'm just going to take off my face here. Sorry. Oh, oops, sorry, 1 second.
I have developed many automated GIS routines. I've selected a sample of these to showcase potential uses for your projects. The main idea I would like you to take away from this presentation is how investing in custom GIS automation can help your team seamlessly execute high-quality deliverables. This is done by understanding the project outcomes, identifying and evaluating required tasks, developing a process, and finally, providing user support. I would like to focus on 3 areas where automation yields high returns on investment. These are data objectives, analysis requirements, and final deliverables. Getting a project started on the right foot sets the tone for the entire project cycle. When every professional has the information they need in the format that suits the technology they are using, they can enter into a workflow from day one. The challenge is the sheer quantity of data needed to be processed. Manual processing is time-consuming and prone to human error. Automating this process for the City of Calgary's data saved 20 hours per project. What it also did was provide confidence in the data and the design that followed. Now let's look at an analysis example. The 194th Avenue Pritisloo crossing had significant hydrological concerns. Volumetric analysis was needed for the existing bathymetry and the displaced volume from the crossing road. This needed to be done for every half-meter elevation layer within several regions. Although Civil 3D is capable of this analysis, each layer and region would need to be modeled manually, which would be a boring and time-consuming task. Whereas Esri's 3D Analyst extension, coupled with a very simple Python script, was able to handle every variation within moments. I would like to introduce you to a project underway for the City of Edmonton. Regions of the city have been grouped into districts to provide guidance for future planning. Each district must function as a small town within the big city, with access to similar community accommodations. 9 cohesive themed maps are needed to be prepared for each district, totaling 135 maps. It was clear from the beginning of this project that automation would be needed. Okay, once you have a clear understanding of what is to be automated, the next step is breaking down the tasks and evaluating the best way to handle them. Whenever possible, it is useful to dive into a previous analogous project. It is also important to break down tasks that are manual and repetitive versus tasks that require a skilled professional to make connections where variables are not easily defined. If this is the case, think of what tools could ease the manual component. Put yourself in the shoes of the person who will be performing the task and automate those helper tools. I will use the South and East Calgary Regional Transportation Study to illustrate this thought process. This was a traffic network study that analyzed the impacts various transportation projects would have over the entire network. The traffic loads for 2 horizons, 2028 and 2039, were prepared using population and employment forecasting. The client modeled network scenarios by applying projects to the horizon year. Ultimately, each of these projects were assigned a recommended build year, and the top 20 impactful projects were ranked. Now, we knew this was a labor-intensive project because we completed the same analysis on the North Calgary region. Looking at the North study gave justification for automation development. This project was over budget, and the lead engineer on many occasions worked late hours into the night. On a good note, the client was ultimately happy with the results of the project, and we were awarded the South study area. This project had the same analysis as well as the same final deliverables. However, there was a larger geographic area to cover, and there were more scenarios to analyze. What we had was an iterative process between the client and our traffic analysis engineer. It was important to break down each step of this process. The client was the owner of the network, and they applied the network implications of each project for each scenario. They would then produce crude maps to show traffic volumes and provide the scenario networks in shapefile format. Our system was to build relevant maps, organize the data, and package them for the engineer. He then looked through all the parts to ensure the model was accurate and make recommendation. He would give it back to us, and then we took the engineer's recommendations and formatted them into maps and tables to give them back to the city. Now that we know all the parts, it is time to develop the process, choose the method, and implement. We identified that our GIS team could process the mapping requirements for each iteration more efficiently. The client's network analysis team was relieved to focus on analysis rather than manual formatting multiple maps. Our team had the capacity because we leveraged ArcPy site package to automate the data processing, update the map data sources, eliminate clients' mapping work, and facilitate the engineer's workflow. The engineer was able to perform his tasks with ease as the maps generated in-house provided more information, and we gave him a system to import his work back to us to format back to the city. Comparatively, between the North and South study, we performed double the work in half the time. And as an added value, the client's workload was reduced because we used the model data and created analysis maps in-house. It is important to support clients as they use the automation tools you develop. Facilitate the custom automation and simplify the usage. Back to the district planning example. The client wish list of functionality included support for a small team of 2 to 3 people with custom layouts per district. This was done because out-of-the-box automation like data-driven pages wouldn't work. If you see, each district is oddly shaped and requires different scales. To reduce editing redundancies and inconsistencies between districts, as well as map themes, one data map was used. Finally, the client wanted tools that were simple without many variable inputs. So we created 2 tools. One tool was for mass plotting the map themes per district, and the other facilitated map edits and handled the layer filtering and query operations. Both of these relied upon information tables to handle the particular details for each district, each map theme, and all the layer queries associated with those. The plotting tool used a bit more information regarding the unique layouts and title block information, which were also recorded using Excel tables. Ultimately, automation doesn't need to be complicated. When you spend a bit of time understanding the outcomes, evaluating the tasks, you can develop a process that is simple to use and will yield high value. Leverage the tools you have and incorporate a little bit of scripting or use a model if that's what you're comfortable with. It can go a long way to easing the load of project work. If you need help breaking down project tasks or formulating a process for automation, I can help with that. Your team can then focus on their specialty and be relieved from mundane work. Screenshot this page. I'm here to help.
Thanks, Veronica. Is your mic on?
I think it is, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay, good, good.
Sure.
I was wondering when you, while we're waiting for some questions to come in, please don't be shy. Type in some questions and we'll get to Veronica. I was wondering, when you're working through projects, it seems to me that you have this mindset that you're looking for ways to automate. What about the customer when you're talking to them about saying, oh, we should stop or slow down, or we should look at automating this before we go any further? How do those conversations usually go?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a clear standard that I generally set before I start on projects. Any sort of system is only going to return investment for as long as you're using it. And if you jump the gun, then your systems end up being more trying to like fix issues that have been created. Sometimes there is a level of process development where you're still trying to get the process right and really identifying the tasks. And of course, that's kind of the discovery of what's going to be helped with automation more so. So it's really back and forth, and it's just important, especially in the beginning, for whoever's going to be automating it or creating the process to be at the table to identify those areas. Sometimes, you know, a person, maybe when they're in the deeps of working, they might notice, oh, well, this one thing would have been helpful. But to have the foresight as to what should be automated or how powerful these tools are, it's really important to bring that, you know, your entire team in from the beginning.
Right. So yeah, that's interesting. It is iterative in the sense that you look like as you go through the project and the requirements of getting results, getting data in, especially as you go through these options, that you learn a little bit along the way and then can apply, you know, the rationale that says this should be automated so that we can reduce the amount of effort and or improve the quality.
Yeah, that's right. And the thing is, these are not cookie cutter processes generally. You know, cookie cutter processes they already have automation a lot. You know, Esri has so many really powerful tools, and I always start by leveraging those automations that are already developed. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's about tweaking what you already have to really fit the specific needs of your project that yields the highest reward where I'm concerned anyways. Right.
Great. Well, thank you. Really appreciate your contribution today. There don't appear to be any other questions at this point, but if people have them, as they think about them, please enter them. I'm going to thank you, Veronica, and I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Tyler Coutts, who's the geoinformatics section head for the Geological Survey of Canada, is part of a committee that is working on a refresh of the Geological Atlas of the Western Canadian Basin. And the project is a multi-year undertaking. And Tyler and his team are working on what I would call the supporting infrastructure to support this major undertaking. And he's here to give us an update on the project, to where they are and what the plan is. So Tyler, over to you.
Okay, perfect, thanks Tim. I'm hoping you guys can now see that. Let's rearrange some windows on my end here. Okay, hello, yeah, so my name is Tyler Coutts and I'm currently the section head of the geoinformatics team at the Geological Survey of Canada located in Calgary. I'm also a member of the CPUG Steering Committee, and I'm here today to talk to you about the 2027 version of the Geological Atlas of the Western Canada Sedimentary Basin. Okay. But before I get started though, I want to run a quick live poll to see who here has heard of the Geological Atlas of the Western Canada Sedimentary Basin. So I think that's now up on your guys' screens. And if you have heard of it, do you currently use any data from the Geological Atlas of the WCSB? Just give a few seconds for people to answer those questions. I guess I should do that myself if I can. Okay, great. I'm not sure when I'll see those results, but I appreciate your participants in that. Oh, there they are. Limited numbers. Okay, great. Okay. To understand what the Atlas 2027 project is all about, though, one first must understand what was accomplished in compiling the 1994 version of the Geological Atlas of the Western Canada Sedimentary Basin. This was a monumental endeavor, remembering that it was only in 1994 that Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web. So you could just imagine the limited computer processing power and technology that was available at the time to the authors in the preceding years before the 1994 Atlas was published. Collaboration amongst the chapter participants must have been old school, actually meeting face to face. To stress the importance of the Atlas, Neil Watson, the past Canadian Society of Petroleum Geologists president, said that the Atlas has opened doors and made the basin entry accessible to all, attracting investment from within and outside Canada. As well, Neil stated that countless scoping and planning exercises, as well as strategic discussions by geoscience experts, have taken place huddled around the Atlas in trying to find a way forward. And finally, he mentioned that the Atlas and its value to the industry and economic well-being of the entire country can only be described as immeasurable. It should be noted that there was an even earlier version of the Atlas called the Geological History of Western Canada, compiled by McCrossa and Glastier way back in 1964. As noted on this slide, that although the geographic extent did not stretch across Western Canada, or did stretch across Western Canada, including parts of northeastern British Columbia, Alberta, southern Saskatchewan, and southeast Manitoba, the 1994 Atlas emphasis was on the Alberta stratigraphy. It stretched from the US-Canada border to just north of the Alberta Northwest Territories border, did not contain the Mackenzie Corridor, Mackenzie Delta, the Yukon, or the BC Intermontane Basins. It preceded the unconventional boom and other resource discoveries, such as the large-scale oil sand developments and thermal bitumen plays that have since come online, and generally predates the digital revolution. Much has happened in the past 25 plus years. Initially, the 1994 version of the Atlas was only available as a hard copy book that weighed in roughly 30 pounds. There's a picture in the right-hand corner of the slide showing the actual size of the Atlas. The Atlas is currently out of print, although I did do a search just last week, and there is one listed on eBay for a buy it now price of $400 US. The Atlas totaled 510 pages and consisted of 35 chapters with 118 authors, with 72 of these authors being unique. Many authors worked on multiple chapters. 36 organizations participated in the development of the Atlas, including government, academia, and industry. The GSC, which I'm a part of, played a large role in the publication of the 1994 Atlas and will do so once again for the 2027 version. Currently, there is a limited amount of digital data available online through the Alberta Energy Regulator, Alberta Geological Survey website, and the Canadian Society of Petroleum Geologists, or CSPG, website. The data that's currently available on the AGS site contains the Atlas shapefiles, which were digitized from the maps, figures and maps, the chapter PDFs, the isopacked and structure surface grid data, although the actual contours were never digitized, as it was suggested that individuals could recreate this using the appropriate GIS software and the well-controlled data. The CSPG site only contains the PDFs of the chapters. There are a number of reasons for the Atlas renewal, including the hundreds of thousands of wells that have been drilled since 1994. The expanded area of interest to include regions well north of 60, stretching right to the Beaufort Sea, the recognition of the unconventional shale revolution, and the emergence of other new energy plays, including geothermal potential, as well as a more recent focus on the exploration of critical minerals such as lithium. Another reason for the Atlas Renewal project is to try to capture as much knowledge as possible before what is being called the Great Crew Change. It has been estimated 71% of the energy workforce is 50 years or older, and the American Petroleum Institute states that as many as 50% of the skilled energy workers may retire in the next 5 to 7 years. We are also well aware from a Canadian perspective that a long-lasting oil and gas downturn has amplified this loss of knowledge, with many professionals leaving the industry. The Atlas 2027 release will also coincide with the CSPG's 100th anniversary. This slide is an overview of the chapter list, and it's unfortunately now a bit dated, as I've been just recently told that there are now 59 chapters. This number has been fluctuating up and down for the last few months as authors finalize the specifics of their chapters. With the increase of chapter numbers, 35 to 59, the author counts are also higher, with the 2027 Atlas currently identifying 125 unique authors, with many of these authors once again working on multiple chapters. The number of authors, though, is expected to vary over time. In regards to the renewal, not all chapters will require wholesale changes. Some may only require minor revisions, while others may need to be fully rewritten, based on scientific advancements of oil and gas technologies in understanding certain formations. Other reasons for the Atlas renewal include providing more value-added products that were not originally provided, including distributing formats that allow for easy viewing, querying, and consumption of digital data for other analyses. We're looking to leverage web technologies, including web services, as well as looking to publish the maps and data to multiple locations. The Esri Living Atlas is one of these examples, to increase usage and visibility. We are also exploring the idea of creating Esri story maps, similar to the Esri story maps found on the AGS website, highlighting the geological framework of Alberta version number 3, which is a 3D representation of the subsurface of Alberta, which I think would make for a great talk for a future session in the CPUG Energy Series webinars. We are also going to focus on making the data more congruent. Looking at the example on the slide, this is 5 different versions of the same reef taken from 5 different figures from the 1994 Atlas. You can see that we have much work ahead of us to create consistencies throughout the map data. Other outputs that will be provided include structure or raster maps, isopack or contour maps, and a number of point data sets. So how are we going to achieve all of this? Well, without going into a lot of detail, there are a number of folks that are working behind the scenes to make this a success. My Atlas colleague, Ben McKenzie, and myself report to the Technical Support Committee. The TS Committee has the following representation, consisting of 10 to 12 people, depending on how many hats a person is wearing at one time. So what have we done so far? Well, first, we focus on utilizing the Open Government Portal to leverage as much open source data as possible, but we also engaged a number of third-party data providers and have signed data sharing agreements with them to have their data available to the Atlas authors. My colleague Ben has also created a custom database that currently contains over 6 million data top points that is ever increasing, with data coming in from not only data providers, but the chapter authors themselves. I have heard that at least one chapter group is going to repick all of their tops. This shows the commitment and dedication that some groups have in trying to create the ultimate atlas. From a GIS perspective, we have created a guide to authors, provided map and metadata standards, and have created a cookbook for creating maps and other outputs. Although I'm sure much to Tim's chagrin, using ArcMap instead of ArcGIS Pro. Although we're still in early days, we're always on the lookout for volunteers as chapters start to ramp up. We have already had early discussions with both the CSPG Outreach Program and the SAIT BGIS program in regards to capstone projects and practicum opportunities, and we'll be looking to exploit these in the coming months. I will end with a very simplified Atlas timeline. Our goal is to have the first draft of the chapter by the end of Q4 2022, although hopefully sooner, and all chapters to be finished by the end of 2025. Editing and review will start to take place in 2026 and wrap up in 2027 with a final release date of the Atlas to be July 2027, CSPG's 100th anniversary. Are there any questions?
Tyler, I don't see any questions yet, but I like the phrase "the great crew change." It does speak to the fact that the industry is in transition, and yet a lot of the skills and knowledge from the primary industry here in Alberta over the last 40 years, being oil and gas exploration and development, can be translated into some of the newer themes. I can't remember how many chapters were in the original Atlas, and you said over 59 now.
Yeah, 35, and right now there's 59. Although that actually went up to 61, and then it's kind of pared back. But there will be a continuous discussion with that, especially as chapters really delve into the details and trying to determine maybe there might be an opportunity to split the chapters up into more than one. But again, that'll be determined over time.
Right. 125 authors. Someone's got to manage this. Is the process well understood, and your authors are all on board, and you're ready? It looks like you're ready for people to actually start creating output.
Yeah. So with a number of authors, obviously that's going to ebb and flow over time, based on priorities and personal and people's personal situations. I will say it has been a bit slow in getting things organized. There is chapter leaders, though, that have started to hold information sessions, team meetings, Zoom meetings, and whatnot, to start those collaborative efforts. We've really seen an increase actually the start of this year. Many more chapters have started to meet. Last year was more just the go no go decision and people just kind of aligning themselves, trying to figure out which chapters that they should be a part of. But like I said, we've seen more of an emphasis of those chapters starting to meet and really starting to get into the details here and trying to figure out what needs to be done. Yeah, it's a large group, right? And like I said, it is changing. Those numbers, people come and go, unfortunately, based on personal situations. It's not something from a GIS perspective we're looking at, but it is one of the representatives on the technical support group there, provides us with some updates on that. And yeah, it will be a challenge. That's a lot of people to try to manage. One thing I didn't mention is that we did sign up for a nonprofit Esri licensing agreement, which allows us to have Esri software. One of the reasons why we went with ArcMap, not everybody is familiar with GIS software, so we picked something that we're very familiar with and easy to teach, or easier to teach. But we are providing that support as well. We are hoping that the authors do leverage some of the technology that they have and skill sets inside potentially their own, place of business. But we do realize there's lots of authors, unfortunately, that are underemployed, I think is the term we use. So, unfortunately are in between jobs. And so we're trying to support them. But we've seen as people, some of them get jobs, they decide to put the Atlas kind of on the back burner and step away from it because of their concentration on their new roles.
Right. So that's why your comment earlier about looking for continuing to look for more volunteers, whether it's on the actual chapter itself or in support roles, certainly from the CPUB community with the GIS skills that we've got available. If people are interested, your subcommittee or the overall committee of people can volunteer. by either contacting the Atlas 2027 Gmail account,
Yes.
or even you directly, I guess.
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's actually preferred if it's atlas2027.gis@gmail.com account, but feel free to reach out to me directly. The Atlas 27 Gmail account is something that multiple people have access to. You potentially would get a better response back. But yeah, so right now, I mean, obviously, we're trying to formulate some opportunities for individuals. Like I said, we've reached out to the CSPG outreach program as well as the SAIT BGIS program just as a start. We're not limiting ourselves to that. We are going beyond that. It was just something that we have familiar with. I'm a graduate from SAIT, and the CSPG is one of the defining organizations that is pushing forward for the Atlas 2027 renewal. But yeah, we are starting to look, and I will admit, over time, we'll definitely need a lot more volunteers, definitely for supporting some of the chapters, as well as for that final compilation. Really, that's going to be a lot of work for us to try to compile 59 different chapters data worth of information into one cohesive atlas.
Yes, well, it's an ambitious project, but I think there's lots of good reasons that you've reviewed as to why to do that, and we appreciate you giving us an update today. Thanks very much.
Perfect, thank you.
Tyler did mention the fact that some of the digital content from the existing atlas has been published in the Esri Living Atlas. And so I thought if Farah and Dahlia could maybe go through the Living Atlas for people that may not know what it is, and expose some of the relevant content that might be there, as well as give people an update on the Community Map of Canada, which is a unique base map that offers additional value to those that are already there. So let me turn it over to Farah, and she and Ali are going to cover the Living Atlas and the Community Map of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Hi, everyone. My name is Farah Huck, and I'm the Living Atlas Curator for Esri Canada. And today I'm going to walk you through some geological and also other types of content from Western Canada that we have in the Living Atlas. And as Kyler mentioned earlier, I'm super excited to mention that the Living Atlas will proudly host the Western Canada Geological Atlas once it's released. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Living Atlas, it's a giant geospatial warehouse of curated, ready-to-use layers, maps, and apps on hundreds of topics. And the main way you can access content from the Living Atlas is to go on the main website, livingatlas.arcgis.com, where you can browse through and also contribute content. And if you'd like to share your data and is interested in contributing, please reach out to me. My contact information will be provided in the end. So the content in the Living Atlas is grouped into 7 main categories, and I'll go over 3 of them today: imagery, environment, and base maps. So under imagery on the left is this web mapping application used to download historical RadarSat-1 imagery from northern Alberta between 1999 to 2002, provided by the Alberta Geological Survey. Aside from that, there are also some other satellite imagery that are updated daily, like Sentinel-2 and Landsat. Over on the right is this land cover map of Canada that shows 15 different land classes from 2015. And last but not least, at the bottom is probably the most popular product under imagery, the World Imagery Wayback app that allows you to compare the same image from 2 different time periods, with the earliest year going back to 2014. Another useful feature on this app allows you to save a time lapse of a collection of imagery and save as an animated GIF. Next up is environment. On the left is BC's wildfire dashboard, which displays active fire perimeters in the stage of control. And because of just how critical this dashboard is during wildfire season, it happens to be the most viewed Canadian item in the Living Atlas, garnering over 18 million views. There are also some other various emergency management apps that report on watches aside from wildfire, such as floods, droughts, and tsunamis from BC, Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. On the right from Alberta is this interactive minerals app that shows industrial and metallic minerals overlaid on Alberta's bedrock geology. That's also contributed by the Alberta Geological Survey. And next to that is a web application of Alberta's river basins that display real-time river metrics, lake precipitation values, and snow data as well. And at the bottom is Saskatchewan's bedrock geology web map that is provided by the government of Saskatchewan. Moving over to base maps, there are a few creative type of base maps with different cartographic styles that you can overlay your data on, like Nova, Blueprint, Pop Art, and more. And now I'm going to pass it off to Alia, who's going to talk about a powerful set of Canadian base maps that are built with authoritative data that's also under the base maps category.
Thanks, Farah. Yeah, indeed. The Community Map of Canada is a useful tool and powerful base map that you can use. We all understand that without a very accurate base map, we can jeopardize our operational layers on top. So for the sake of time, I'm going to be walking you through an overview of what the Community Map of Canada program is. I'm going to be showing you how not all base maps are created equally before finally closing it with what value do you get as a user from using this powerful base map. So let's get into it. The Community Map of Canada is a national base map program facilitated by Esri Canada to create a standardized cartography of the country. Data that is used on the map comes from authoritative sources, so you can always trust where that data is coming from. Labeling place names are actually multilingual. We will have English, French, and in certain instances, Indigenous place names, depending on where the information is coming from, depending on the contributor. And finally, and the best feature of all, is that it's complementary. Whether you're just a user or you actually want to contribute data, you're an authoritative source and you want to contribute data to the program, that is free for you to do at all times. So let's take a look at how not all base maps are created equal. I'm going to be comparing the Community Map of Canada base map to its Esri siblings, the World Raster, the World Vector, and Community Map. There are two main distinctions on which you can compare these maps. The first is the availability of Canadian content, and the second one is the frequency at which this data gets updated. So Canadian content on the World Raster is no longer being updated. What's on the map is on the map. Whereas Canadian content on the World Vector comes from Here Data, which we all know is a third-party provider. So, sometimes it may not be as accurate. Whereas the Community Map of Canada's data comes from the communities themselves. And by communities, I mean all levels of government, federal, provincial, regional and local. We're working with First Nation communities, we're working with universities and colleges, and infrastructural organizations such as ports and airports. Looking at timing and frequency of updates, the World Raster, Esri's World Raster base map has gone into mature support, which kind of explains, why content is no longer being updated. Whereas the Canadian content on the World Vector gets updated every quarter. So if you are, looking to see a new street or block or new area, it's going to be very difficult. You'll have to wait a while. Whereas Community Map of Canada, you actually get, we ping our over 300 plus contributors nightly for new updates that they have, and we publish a new version of the map twice a week. That's every 72 hours. And again, for sake of time, I'm going to just plop each of, give you a visual of all these three base maps side by side to give you an accurate representation. As you can see on the far hand right, the Community Map of Canada has a lot of information. So imagine that, under whatever operational layers you are working with. And then, so what does it mean for you as a user to be using this map? First and foremost, you can trust the data. You know it's coming from the communities that work with the data, that manage the data every day. The frequency of updates, we can't ignore that. It's 72 hours. So, right away, within 3 days, you'll be able to see any new information. We've heard it very, Veronica mentioned it earlier in her presentation, where base mapping had actually, using some of the inbox base maps, had actually saved time. So that's, again, something that you can do. You don't have to recreate or reinvent the wheel, as she'd mentioned. The other thing, we actually provide 5 standard styles. We have a street, topo, a street night, light gray, and dark gray. So you can always switch it up. And with them being vector base maps, you can easily incorporate into the Esri vector tile style editor to make changes or add, customize it as you wish. And finally, they're available for you in an online mode and most recently in an offline mode. So you can actually take it into the field. And for offline, it's available in ArcGIS Online or even in a enterprise environment, both disconnected and connected and disconnected environments. So I'm going to close it up to here. Farah and I are available by email or on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to us and let us know if you have any questions. Tim, are there any questions? Are you speaking? I can't hear you.
Thanks for going through that. I appreciate your quick flyby for people, and I hope that it's not new news to anyone. Although with the community maps recently announced go offline, there's some always changing capability and content. I'm just, Q&A is not showing any questions at this point. Let me, so I know that there are standards that we try in order to make sure that there's consistency with content that we publish, Farah, to the Living Atlas. You can help, if customers have content that they'd like to share, you can help them through that process?
Of course, yes. And I can be reached by email, LinkedIn, whatever works. I will help you through the nomination process, go over how to nominate, how to present your data in an efficient way, and also what format would look the best, whether it's a layer or if it could be turned into a web map. So, it would look polished in a global platform like the Living Atlas of the world.
Okay, great, thank you. And Alia, the same for you as far as Canadian maps, you're the focal for that, the Community Map of Canada. New offline capability, there might be some opportunities for clients to take that with some of our mobile apps, correct?
Yes, very true. And if any customer has an issue with the workflows are available. The community map team is always happy to give the helping hand and test it out with you. So definitely, if anybody's looking looking for the offline workflows, and can I just chime in and say we have a webinar coming up next week about that?
Yep.
2 weeks.
Yeah, sure.
my promotional plug. So.
That's great. That's great. Well, thanks very much. It does fit with our theme, and we appreciate you taking time. And yeah, if people can't contact you, they can contact me, and I certainly know how to get those people to you. So thanks very much for contributing today. I'm going to hand over quickly to the to our CPUG steering committee update team, Dion and Lindsay. Can you take us through a quick update and maybe ask the participants today a few questions that might help us in the future?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Tim. Hello, everyone. My name is Dion, and today Lindsay and I will be giving you a CPUG update. Thank you for attending today's webinar, and we hope you found it informative. Just a quick overview. This is your CPUG leadership team. We are comprised of 6 volunteer positions. We have Victor Rutherford from Plains Midstream, myself, Dion Paul from Point IDS, Kyler Coots from Natural Resources Canada, Wendy McAfee from Geologic Systems, Tim Buckley from Esri, Lindsay Nyholt from TC Energy. The committee is constantly looking for content for future knowledge sharing sessions. So if any of you have any interest, please feel free to reach out to us at the leadership team, either directly or through LinkedIn. And now I will hand it over to Lindsay to talk about upcoming CPUG events.
We're going to go through the poll first.
Right, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for attending today. We have a few questions we'd like to put out to our attendees to help gauge, feedback from today's session, but also what we can do to provide content back to you in future sessions that is of interest. So if I can draw your attention to the polling pane within the meeting here. Our first question is, how familiar are you with the process of simple automation? As well as, do you use process automation? Okay. Thank you very much for your answers here. I still don't see them, so it might take a few seconds for that to come up. Okay. Yeah, I'm the same too. I partially use some, and I wish to use it more automation in the future as well. Okay, the second one, also model builder, was a popular choice. Okay, second question. Which of the following statements best describes your experience with simple automation in ArcMap and ArcPro? Okay. Just waiting for that poll to close. There you go. Oh, sounds like we have a lot of people who are comfortable with automation. That's awesome. Okay, next question. Do you use the data from Esri's Living Atlas or the community maps that we have seen today? And perhaps next question. We got a few yeses there. That's awesome. Okay, so when thinking about future webinars that we'll be hosting, what topics are of interest? So you can select a handful here. It's not just one, and this will help us plan these events in the future as well. And we'll just wait for that poll to close as well. Perfect. Thank you so much for your input on that question. We will definitely be using the results for our future events. And the last question, have you switched over to Arc Pro yet? Well, we thank you very much for your participation in the poll today. Like I said, it's very helpful for us, and we can move into what's coming. Perfect, thank you. So today was our first webinar of the 2022 Energy Series. However, we do have some more coming up. So we have our next one tentatively set for April 5th. And we are planning to include some FME and data interoperability into that presentation. Please be on the lookout for an invite for that event. As we mentioned, our next webinar will be based on the input that we received from the poll today. We will do our best to incorporate those. However, if you do have a topic of interest that wasn't brought out in the poll today, please feel free to reach out. We're always looking for people to participate and share their knowledge with the group. So if you'd like to present, we definitely ask you to reach out. As noted on the slide, a calendar of additional PUG related events are available on the main PUG website. And if you just scroll down on the webpage, there's a calendar there, and you can navigate through the different PUG events that are occurring across North America. And some of them might be of interest to you. Thank you very much for your time today. I'll pass it back to Tim.
Tim, you're muted. Tim, you need to unmute yourself. There we go.
I would like to encourage people, as Lindsay said, to reach out to us at any time if you feel there's something you'd like to share or content that that you have that would be useful for the membership or for discussion even, where we could have this idea of a poll with the team. We're hoping that we can get back together sometime in April for our next session. We'll use your input today to formulate that and stay tuned, and we'll let you know when we can do that next. There is the planned CPUG, or the PUG event has been announced to be in Houston on the May 4th, 5th timeline. So for people who may not have heard that or seen that announcement, that may be of interest to you in the spring. And of course, our annual event, which is in October, where it's never too soon to get volunteers to support us on that. So Lindsay, Dion, thanks very much. I'm just going to bring up a closing slide or two just to sign off today. While I do that. So again, our topic today had the theme, the data themes running through it. I want to thank Veronica, Kyler, Farah and Alia, and Dion and Lindsay for contributing, for sharing. and for making our community vibrant and the content that we provide useful. You'll also see at the bottom here some courses that may be of interest. About half, 2/3 of I think of the people that responded have already moved to Pro, but for those who haven't, there's regularly scheduled courses on that, as well as a couple of the Python skills courses that that Veronica mentioned as being part of her toolbox for automating and considering. So in closing, I want to thank everyone for attending. It's very important, the things that you do in our community. We appreciate you spending time with us today. Stay tuned for upcoming events in 2022, and we hope to see you in person sometime soon. So thanks again, and we'll sign off now. Thanks.